Soda bread is a form of quick bread and is just as easy to make, but you do have to rely on special ingredients. Here are your ingredients you'll need for this recipe, but don't worry, there's a link below as usual. Let's go over the equipment you'll need. It's not anything fancy. You need a bowl, a spoon or a spatula. A fork is helpful, not necessary. Cooling rack is always beneficial. Some parchment paper will help you release the bread easily, but you can just spray it if you don't have any. And a 9 by 5 pan or 13 by 23 centimeter, I believe. Y'all are going to have to forgive me. My accent is coming through really strong today and I'm not sure why, so let's just go with it. When you're using a soda bread, you use baking soda instead of baking powder. I really prefer baking powder because it has a double acting feature. It's made with baking soda and an acid, whereas baking soda just has a base to it and you need to add the acid to have the bread rise. Oh my gosh, forgive that accent. If not, you just have a flat cake. The baking soda and ingredients usually call spread, and the baking powder and ingredients calls puff. That's how I kind of keep them apart in my head. But let's set the baking powder aside and let's just focus on baking soda today, even though baking powder is my favorite thing in the world, because it's just kind of idiot proof. So let's go preheat that oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius and get started on our bread making. I made a lot of phone calls and talked to people local to my area, and I wonder if that's where it's coming from. Anyway, let's get started. You're going to need some flour, 1 cup of white flour, 150 grams, and 1 cup of whole wheat flour, 150 grams. You can use all white flour if you like. 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda, 5 grams. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, about 2.5 grams. And 1/4 cup of brown sugar, which is 56 grams, and you mix this together. And this is the exact same recipe with just a few key ingredient changes that we did just a few days ago. I just wanted to show you how baking powder versus baking soda affects rise in a bread and the differences in texture and quality. Next, add in 1 beaten egg, which is 50 grams. The following ingredient is very important. You need to use buttermilk or a buttermilk substitute, 1 cup or 240 milliliters. If you don't have buttermilk, please look below for a recipe on how to make a buttermilk substitute. You need the acid to help rise that baking soda in your bread. Then put in 1/4 cup of honey, which is 84 grams or 60 milliliters. And then 2 tablespoons of oil, 30 milliliters, or you can add in 2 tablespoons of melted butter as long as you measure it after you melt the butter. Give this a quick stir. It's going to take maybe about 30 seconds total to stir it together. You just don't want it to show any flour, but you don't want to overmix it either. It's kind of like a muffin recipe, and it looks like I have a visitor hanging off the back of my pants. Say hi to Scout. I love this cat. Okay, it's going to look like this, and it's going to be very lumpy. If you like, you can add a little bit more liquid, about 2 tablespoons if you want it to be more pourable, but the buttermilk is thicker, and that's why it looks like this. Try not to get it all over the countertop and on the top of the pan when you're pouring it in. If you do, just clean it up, no big deal. And you just want to push it into the sides and just try to level it out a little bit if you want. If not, it's okay because it forms these nice cracks and crevices as it bakes like this. 45 to 55 minutes later, take it out when a toothpick inserted in the middle comes out clean, and let it cool for about 10 minutes. If you try to lift it up and it doesn't give away, just use a spatula and loosen the sides and it should pop right out if you use the parchment paper. This is why I like to use parchment paper and not just grease the pan or rely on non-stick pans. Remove the parchment paper from the bottom and then just let it cool for about 5 to 10 minutes. When you make this, feel free to mess around with the ingredients. Put in less sugar if you're not crazy about sugar, because this is kind of a sweet bread. I really like it for grilled cheese and ham. It makes a nice kind of Monte Cristo kind of thing going on. You can also put in more or less wheat flour. I recommend always trying to put wheat flour when you can because whole grains are very good for you and it just helps keep you full longer and you eat less. As you can see, I have 2 guests coming to eat dinner with me. They absolutely adore bread, and in small moderations, if your vet okays it, go ahead and share with them because they work really hard to keep you happy. Why not keep them happy? It is a very tender bread. It pulls apart easily. It looks like a muffin. It's not like a yeasted bread. This bread is so good you'll be jumping up and down like a little jumping bean. So I hope you learned the difference between baking powder and baking soda today. Visit us at jacksonsjob.com for more recipes, and as always, happy baking.